Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning. Welcome, everybody.
And the background behind us indicates that I'm up and Mark is
And
down.
I'm down, yes.
It's actually Lucid behind me and Fisker behind Mark. We'll talk about that in a moment. Thought we would start the conversation with a podcast we did yesterday. We sometimes insert impromptu podcasts, and yesterday we had visitors from NXU. The X is silent, and the X is actually an infinity symbol, I found out.
Oh, okay.
But it is pronounced new, and these are local folks here that are pioneering new charging technologies. And they are also the first ones to charge a Cybertruck, at least with an independent charger, which is an 800-volt architecture.
Yeah, and they were able to charge it at the full 800 volts, which is something that even Tesla doesn't really have available. Because their V4
the level 4
superchargers are only available in Europe right now.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, these guys are breaking new ground, and we got to know the owner, Mark Hanchett. Victor Atlasman is the CTO, which you might think means Chief Technology Officer, but they're a small company, so it actually means Chief Tour Officer.
I see.
He gives all the tours. I guess you could call me that too, because I do a lot of those over at Gruber Motor Company. CTO and CEO for me then, I guess.
That's right. And you have all kinds of letters that you can throw around.
Totally. Found these guys to be fascinating. They toured our Gruber Motor Company service center, and they're very technical people. They're engineers, and they found the whole tour fascinating from a different lens than most people, because we should get customers that aren't necessarily or have an engineering background. And these guys understood everything that was taking place. In fact, at one point, we have a number of PEMs in the electronics lab that are being rebuilt. Mm-hmm. And so the covers were off, and I pointed to the various things that we replaced. And he says, "Oh, look at those 21 electrolytic capacitors. Those are the originals from, 2008? And he said, they have a service life of only 7 to 8 years. And I said, I know. That's why we rebuild them, because most people don't realize that you have aging electronics in the Tesla Roadster, in the electronics, that need to be replaced."
Oh, that's got to be something else, having an engineer like that come through, and he sees things before you even tell him.
It's usually, we have to sell customers on the concept and educate them. What's going on in your car that represents deferred maintenance? But these guys immediately recognize it, and that was great validation.
When our podcast was just getting started, I happened across them. They were still named Atlas Motors at the time. Mm-hmm. And their battery technology is just something else. Because they were talking about at the time how they could pump 1,600 amps at 1,000 volts through one of their batteries to bring it from a 20 to 80% charge. Right. And by a unique, novel way of doing the electrolyte in the battery, absolutely zero heat in the battery.
Fascinating.
And that was fascinating to me.
They are definitely innovators, and we found that there was another common interest in that both Mark and I started in our house. And I had 17 people once working out of the house, and he had 16. And it was fun reminiscing with him the trials and tribulations of trying to start a business in a house.
Did Mesa do to him what Phoenix had done to you?
No, actually, he didn't. He didn't give me the reasons why they left, but it was probably growth, and you outgrow the house. But we left. I don't know if it's prematurely, but we had a competitor turn us in, and one day the city of Phoenix showed up and said, "You're not zoned for this. We're going to give you a 60-day cease and desist notice." Yes. And they were very serious about that, so we had to get some lease space very quickly.
Yeah, and you ended up doing that, and the rest is history, because you came up into this neighborhood.
Yeah, that competitor actually did us a favor. I don't know how long we would have hung out in the house and tried to make that work. There were some advantages, though. You had a kitchen, we had a backyard, there were fruit trees in the backyard. It was cozy, but certainly not anything that you can grow into a large corporation with.
Right, exactly.
But anyway, for those of you interested, there will be a video that we will release, and New may have already released theirs about this podcast that we did yesterday.
Well, we also Cass shot the the tour you guys did with them, and they were asking good questions and kind of walking through. So we're going to do a tour video, and then we also will do clips from the podcast. So
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Okay. So yeah, stay tuned for that. That should be a good video and a good recap of the podcast. All right. Looks like we've got some questions here.
Yeah, Sammy Kamal is joining us again today. He says, "Let's go, Lucid family. Woohoo. Keep on adding to your Lucid positions, everyone. Stay focused, and discipline, and hard work, and dedication. Goonies never say die." And then he continues and says, "Love you guys together as one Lucid family."
You know, when we first heard about the PIF fund boost, I immediately asked, what's the stock doing? It was hovering around 270 and just, it's already up to $3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, we got to be careful though,
Yes.
because this is not actually the PIF fund. It's a PIF fund affiliate, they say.
Okay. All
So
right.
it's basically a company that's owned by the PIF, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
But another
Yeah.
billion in the bank.
Did you have
Yes.
some insight into that
I
financially?
do have a little bit. This announcement, which came on Monday, is that Lucid's raising another $1 billion, and it is an affiliate of the PIF fund. This affiliate, it's IR Third Investment Company is what it's called. They're purchasing convertible preferred stock. A preferred stock usually means that it doesn't have voting rights, so it's kind of a different class of stock than common shares, and doesn't dilute ownership interest quite as much as purchasing common. But the fact that it's convertible means that they have the ability to convert this into 280 million shares of stock. This really highlights a key advantage that Lucid has over really all of its rivals in the EV startup space, not just Fisker, which we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But even Rivian or Aptera or any of these other startups, the Saudi Arabian government has strategically decided that they need to diversify from oil.
Mm-hmm.
It's important economically for them to do so. And Saudi Arabia has chosen Lucid as the vehicle or as the method by which they're going to do some of that diversification. So what that means very simply is that Lucid's got a really big supporter, very wealthy supporter in their back pocket. It doesn't mean that Lucid has unlimited funds,
Mm-hmm.
but it also, Lucid's not going to need to have unlimited funds. They've got probably a stronger financial backer and financial backing than pretty much anybody else in the industry right now, who is in startup mode and trying to get to that profitability space.
Interesting. Yes. So Lucid is up now. What is happening to Fisker's, Mark?
Fisker, on the other hand, is in a whole heap of trouble. Fisker was talking with Nissan to try to get Nissan to come in, give them capital investment and give them expertise so that they could get through the problems that they have in the Fisker Ocean. It's been widely panned as a very poor quality car. And those talks collapsed over the weekend. They announced on Monday as well that they are not continuing talks forward with the automaker they were talking with, that automaker being Nissan. And as a result, there has been a domino effect that has started to take place. The NYSE stock exchange has suspended trading of Fisker stock.
Suspended at this point.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So that's important. It's an important step. They've started the delisting process. Typically, when your stock goes below $1 for 30 consecutive days, an exchange that your stock is traded on will come to you and say, "We are looking at delisting your stock because you have not met our minimum requirements." When the NYSE suspended trading of the stock and started the delisting process, they effectively said, "Fisker, not only are we going to give you warning about delisting, we don't believe that you're capable of getting to where you can be listed again in 6 months. So we're accelerating that timeline, and you've got 10 days."
Oh, wow. Okay.
So when that happens, the delisting is going to force Fisker to offer to repurchase its unsecured convertible notes that are due in 2026. And it also triggers a debt default immediately on their 2025 convertible notes. And Fisker has basically what that means is there's a whole bunch of credit that Fisker has taken out, bonds that they've sold, that have now become immediately due. Fisker doesn't have the cash to buy them.
Interesting. Okay.
So Fisker has already missed a March 15th interest payment on their 2026 bond notes. And what they announced is that, yeah, we have the cash, but we're working on a plan to move forward. So we're going to hold off on this payment. We're going to use our 30-day grace period before we default on those notes,
Right.
To try to get things settled out, and then we'll get it paid. Well, now with this latest news, that happened on March 15th. With the latest news, most analysts are saying that bankruptcy is a foregone conclusion, that there is no way Fisker can survive.
Mm-hmm. And your take on the rate of decline at this point, how fast before we go to Chapter 7, do you think?
They'll probably try to do a Chapter 11 first. That's my own opinion. Because doing a Chapter 11 allows them the chance to potentially reorganize as a corporation, look for one of their creditors or one of the other motor companies to buy them out and continue as a going concern.
Mm-hmm.
If they can't find somebody through Chapter 11 bankruptcy reorganization, then they would likely convert that to a Chapter 7 and simply dissolve everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sad news for Fisker and for the Fisker investors. It looks very much like Fisker is at a minimum going to be going through a Chapter 11 bankruptcy. As we were talking about last week, that's not necessarily a guaranteed death of the company.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Lordstown Motors went through that Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and they emerged from Chapter 11 bankruptcy as a new corporate entity this last week. So there is a chance that Fisker could still survive, although probably not in its current form.
Mm-hmm. Got a bunch of comments coming in here. Sammy Kamal says a possible partnership with McLaren Automotive and Lucid for its battery tech and motor. Okay.
I've heard about that possibility.
Yeah. PYGKLB says, I have 2 shares of Lucid and 4 Matchbox Lucid Airs. Seems to me they are worth about the same.
Ouch.
PYG.
That's cold-hearted. But
that's kind of cold-hearted. I have to admit, though, with where Lucid's trading right now, I think that your 4 Matchbox Lucid Airs are probably worth about 4 shares of Lucid, not 2.
Right. Niels is joining us from Denmark. He says, what are the Arabs getting in return? Speaking about Lucid, a fixed amount of shares, predetermined amount of cash? How much dividend are they getting? What is the conversion price?
I can answer some of those questions. What the Arabs are getting in return for investing $1 billion is the ability to convert their preferred stock into roughly 280 million shares of common stock. It does not, they do not have a predetermined amount of cash that they will get back, or a dividend per se, but with common stock, they would be able to have the voting rights and an actual ownership stake of the company in that sense.
Interesting. All right, another topic here. And, I have to point out that I am always amazed at Elon Musk's brevity. I think Twitter was a good purchase because it's all one sentence, one-liners, right?
Yes, or one word in a lot of cases.
Exactly. I tend to, embellish and write paragraphs, and I'm inspired by this kind of brevity. But anyway, here's his tweet. He's saying regarding FSD, going forward, it is mandatory in North America to install and activate FSD version 12.3.1 and take customers on a short test ride before handing over the car. And then he says almost no one actually realizes how well supervised FSD actually works. Now, you had some takeaways on that.
Well, I did. When I read about that, and I thought, wow, do you remember the first time that you took your baby to the doctor, your newborn baby, and it has to be your firstborn,
right?
And you gave you give them this bundle, and they throw those blankets open and start moving them around. You're, wait a minute, you're gonna break them. or whether it's a musical instrument, or you're the owner of a new car and somebody who is an expert driver comes in and takes it for a spin and lets you sit in the passenger seat.
Oh, yes, I remember that trepidation well.
Yeah, I just lost. Do I still have sound?
You
Yeah,
do,
we can
yes.
still hear
Okay. You come out and everything turns out okay, and at the end you're like, wow, I didn't know it could do that.
Uh-huh.
That's what I think is going to happen with Tesla. I think people are scared of FSD, so they don't know what it can or can't do, and so they don't want to buy it, and they just don't know what they don't know. So now you get an expert that comes in and takes your new ride on a spin, and it scares the bejesus out of you because they go like this.
Yeah.
And at the end of that
Reading a
drive,
book, right?
yeah, at the end of that drive, you're like, wow, I didn't know it could do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's what's going to happen.
So it's going to sell more FSD, and of course educate the customers as to how to use it and how to get the maximum benefit from it.
Yes, I think it's a great idea.
Wonderful. Okay. Bernard Homan, hello from Toluca, Mexico. Yes, thanks for joining us again, Bernard. I think we missed you the last couple of podcasts.
Glad to have you.
Richard Flenke is with us. We got your email, Richard, by the way. He says, the money bet on Lucid is the motor tech. My fantasy pick is forward buying them. Now, there's an interesting
Now, that
notion.
would be something. Think about that really well-engineered Lucid motor sitting inside either a Ford Mustang or the Ford Lightning, or some other Ford. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. And Richard has a book that's coming out shortly, or maybe already is. We'll definitely promote that for you, Richard. I believe it's going to be available on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And as I had mentioned previously, we receive a lot of surplus critical power equipment, UPSs basically, that we then refurbish or part out or scrap.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in that mix that we got, there was actually a Jack Ricard inverter, a 20 kW inverter, little green thing, pretty heavy actually, and they were getting ready to scrap it, and I rescued it. I said, no, this is from a legend, right?
Yeah.
This is a keeper. So we're going to hook it up over at Gruber Motor Company eventually, probably put some EV batteries on it and get this thing working. And if we really get crazy, we're going to get some solar up on the roof and have it charge the batteries and turn this into an off-grid type application.
Oh, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah. But we're going to need your guys' help as to how to make this thing work. I don't think we got any documentation with it either, but we'll get a hold of you once we get serious about it, Richard. Richard, by the way, was co-host of the EVTV podcast for many years, and Jack Ricard was a legend in the industry. He was one of the first people that began to talk about sustainable energy, EVs, and did a lot of reverse engineering and built a lot of cool equipment. He would have podcasts, and if you weren't technical, guaranteed you would be asleep in 5 minutes. It was dry, it was but extraordinarily technical, and the man was genius level when it came to working with that kind of technology. Sadly, he died about 2 or 3 years ago or so, and but his legend lives on.
It definitely does. Niels has another comment for us. He says, right now, the FSD take rate in USA is 7%. So out of 100 cars, only about 7 of them have full self-driving capabilities.
Yeah.
And he says it's lower elsewhere. By pushing it on people, Musk may be able to get it to 10 to 15%. Most are going to want to drive themselves and keep the $12,000.
Yeah, I think it's a generation thing too. From my generation, we don't want to let go of the wheel. We enjoy driving. We want to be the master of that vehicle.
Right. But Niels, I think you're right, though. I think that if people see what it can do and have it demoed for them in their own car, it's going to influence at least some people.
Yeah. And it would be great for my sister-in-law. We worry about her. Can I say that on this podcast? Yeah, I don't think
sure.
she watches. No, she watches Instagram. I'm sorry, Nadine. I take it all back. I didn't mean it.
Oh,
PYG KLB says, I got FSD 12.3 last weekend. It improves on the 11.4 in several ways. We've heard that. One of our technicians, engineers actually, at Gruber Motor Company also has a new version in his Model 3, and he said it is substantially different. It's a game changer compared to the old version.
He did. He said it is like driving. It is truly like a human driving the car, and that they're completely alert and it's completely smooth experience.
Mm-hmm.
Neil responds to us. He says, "Really, let go of the wheel or let go of $12,000?"
Hard choice, right, Niels?
So also should be noted too. You don't have to pay $12,000. You can just pay $100 a month if you want to try it out, and then cancel it any time. There's no commitment. You don't have to buy it outright with the purchase if you don't want to.
That's also a smart move. You get them used to it. They realize the benefits, and maybe they'll spring for the other 11,440 or whatever it ends up being.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, got another news item here. It says Tesla is closing in on construction of a new Megapack factory in China as new equipment has been spotted on site. You know, you get these guys with the drones.
Right.
And they will reveal things that maybe the company isn't quite ready to reveal yet, but there's no stopping them. The airspace is unregulated. So here they are flying over a portion of China, which apparently is not too far from the Shanghai Gigafactory, which currently produces Model Ys and Model 3s for several markets, Asia, Europe, Australia, and elsewhere. But what they're saying about this is apparently Tesla has purchased or secured a site and had a signing ceremony for the upcoming Shanghai Megafactory, and this was in December. Construction is expected to begin in Q1, which it looks like it already has, according to this drone footage. And the drone operator, by the way, is a gentleman called Wu Wa, W-U-W-A-A. And as this quarter, this quarter draws to close, this new construction equipment has made its way to the site, and they're beginning excavating. At this point, it looks like the goal here is to finish or start construction. They say Q3, it's an old article, Q3 of 2023. Well, they already have. I'm looking for a completion date. Here we go. They are able to produce, they say, 10,000 megapacks per year, or the same amount as its sister megafactory in Lathrop, California. Remember, they converted and expanded Lathrop, which was a building that they're leasing, I believe. They say that the Lathrop megafactory has been spotted with hundreds of megapacks being ready to go out, just as a number of megapack-based storage energy systems have come online around the world. They say that 2024 may be the year of Tesla energy. And they feel that Tesla's energy growth rate in 2024 will outpace the automotive business. That's substantial, isn't it?
That's really substantial, and I'm not terribly surprised. I've heard of orders for as much as 500 gigawatts worth of batteries to be able to store the energy that's being produced by these massive solar and wind farms. To me, this is the future for Tesla, even more than the cars.
You think, huh?
I do, because, first and aside, how long have they had Gigafactory Mexico on the books and getting ready to start building? Was a year and a half, 2 years. They haven't started yet. They picked up the new Shanghai spot the end of last year, and here it is 3 months later, and they're already got shovels in the ground. This is going to be another one of those things. I think this factory might get done before Mexico does.
Interesting.
But the back onto the batteries, that stationary battery storage is a market that is set to really explode far beyond even what the automotive market is, because there are so many areas of the world that want to go green. And these batteries have a limited life. We already know that from the automotive application. So what Tesla is doing is it's building out recurring revenue.
I see where you're going with this. Okay. All right.
So they get a couple of terawatts worth of energy storage capacity out into the world. And guess what happens in, say, 10 years? They get to build another couple of terawatts of battery energy storage. And pretty soon, it's just a business that feeds on itself.
And then you have the maintenance that goes along with it, the preventive maintenance, the replacement of these as the batteries age. And
Yes.
I can see the recurring income angle clearly.
Yes, and so that's where I think this is this has the potential to be a much bigger cash cow, as it were, for Tesla than the vehicle building, because all they're doing is building large battery modules and sticking them in a cabinet and sending them off.
Mhm.
It's much simpler than building a car and going through all the regulatory hoops for that.
Good point. Yeah. All right, more comments. Lito, Idaho. Hello, guys. Lito here. Yep, thanks for joining us. He says, I hope Rhea will install a factory over here in Georgia. Hyundai is currently building an EV factory just outside Savannah, Georgia.
I definitely hope that they do as well, and I'm wondering if that is Rivian Automotive that they'll finish their factory. I know that they're on hold for right now, but they've got a factory that's going to be built in that area as well.
If that is, yeah, that's probably Rivian. I couldn't decrypt that acronym initially, but Rivian, I believe, has gone on hold with that factory in Georgia at this point, and it was a financial decision focused on reducing the cash burn and
Yes.
making products that will alleviate that, and getting their vehicles out on the road. We've got the R2 coming out the end of this year, so yeah, that's a smart move. But Hyundai, I did not know about them, just outside Savannah, Georgia. And then Lito also says, Super Chat, $1.99 USD. Great work, guys.
So that's our first super chat. So that he paid to have a message highlighted and boosted in the chat.
Oh, did not know that. Okay. Well, thank you,
Thank you
Lito.
for the support. Yeah.
Yeah.
We appreciate the support there. That's fantastic.
All right. Aptera apparently is in the news again. And it's a brief headline. It says, Aptera reveals solar EV structure, says funds are enough now to start production in 2024. Of course, everybody's been waiting. Will Aptera make it? Sadly enough, the other three-wheeler that started to rise to prominence, Electromechanica, Solo, we have been purchasing production assets out here in East Mesa. And they're closing down a 300,000 square foot manufacturing facility that was making the three-wheelers. There are about 700 cars that will be crushed, and there's some financial justifications for that for those of you appalled that the GM EV1 debacle is repeating itself.
Yes.
And ironically enough, it's within a couple of miles of where the EV1s were crushed in 1994.
Yeah, the Aptera plant was built in a new industrial area that is goodness, like you said,
Solo
within
Mechanical, you mean?
I'm sorry, not Aptera. Oh. The Electromechanica Solo. Yeah, that plant is being built or was built and then housed them. And you're right, it's within a couple of miles of the GM proving ground, which was where all of the EV1s went to be crushed.
The very location that they did the crushing of these EV1s, and of course that became huge news because there was even a movie made, Who Killed the Electric Car,
Yes.
basically. The conspiracy theorists all assumed that it was big oil that was involved in backing this and behind it and all. So it became fairly popular, so much so that later on a high school was built on that very land where the crushing took place. And to commemorate the history, in their cafeteria, they have a gigantic wall mural of the EV1 and the crushing operation.
We are going to have to go down to that high school at some point and get pictures.
We got to shoot a video there, guys. Yeah.
And I would just about bet that if we explain who we are and the purpose behind it, and they'll let you in probably.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I believe so, too. Of course, we'll probably end up doing the same thing at this Electromechanica facility. The three-wheeler concept is a single commuter car, basically. And what we saw outside the facility as we were picking up some of the production equipment that we purchased at auction was a really elegant little car, single commuter, good for about 80 miles around town type transport. Carbon fiber, very light, and it looked exquisitely designed. But there are some technical problems that apparently prevent it from continuing to be on the road, and some financial considerations that are forcing the company now to crush these cars.
Yeah, that's a sad story for Electromechanica. On Aptera, I'm excited though.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they talked about having 60% or more of the funding that they needed to do all their production work. That they're on schedule to be able to get prototypes out by the end of 24 or the end of this year, and be able to get cars in the hands of paying customers sometime next year. For a little car like this, it has the solar on the top and super efficient and, you know, kind of that commuter car. I'm excited. I really hope they are able to get this thing to work.
The technology is fascinating. You know, the combining of solar with transportation is a groundbreaking, game-changing, I think, technology. The in-wheel motors are a technical nightmare, though, and some of these companies have solved that, like Lordstown, for example, I believe is in that as well. So, by the way, Lito meant Tesla, not REA, I'm assuming, in the last comment that he made.
Thank you, Lito, for the clarification.
So this is a Teslarati article by Simon Alvarez. We oftentimes like to give credit to these researchers and these writers. He says that BYD celebrates 7 million new energy vehicle production milestone. 7 million. And there was another article that I didn't bring, but somebody's got a $10,000 EV, and I think it was BYD. And the article, the headline was something like, "This is sending shivers throughout the rest of the EV manufacturers."
Well, I know that they've got the Seagull, which runs on a sodium-ion battery as opposed to lithium-ion, and has a retail price of about $13,000.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a BYD affiliate that has that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember us talking about 6 million vehicles from BYD?
Yes, it wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't. It was the end of November. It's been about 4 months is all.
Mm-hmm. So we've got another million. And at that pace, these guys are going to continue to dominate the largest EV manufacturer status.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like Niels has a comment. He says, but won't lithium battery storage be outdone by other technologies for stationary storage? Vanadium storage, sand batteries, and sodium batteries. You know, that's one of the things that Mark Hanchett was talking about yesterday, is there's so many new battery technologies that will eventually replace lithium. But his feeling was that we're going to be stuck with battery technology for some time. He wasn't very high on inductive coupling type charging, for one.
Okay.
But yeah, the parade of new technologies emerging for storage batteries will definitely affect these storage technologies. And then, of course, at this point, Jesse usually chimes in and says, fusion, that's really the future. Forget batteries. We don't need batteries. We need an unlimited power source like the sun that will continue to supply energy. It won't have to be recharged, right?
Right.
It's on its way.
Its way.
It's on its way.
And what I'm excited about is we do AI podcasts. AI is assisting the incremental growth and the exponential growth in technology.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the most exciting aspects of working with artificial intelligence is that it is actually an augmentation that is just putting innovation on steroids.
Absolutely, and to respond for myself to Niels, there are other technologies out there right now. Lithium and the lithium-ion base with its various forms, whether it's the cobalt nickel lithium battery, that's the traditional lithium-ion battery, or the LFP battery, or some of these others. Their energy density is growing at about the same rate as energy density of the other technologies, except for one, and that being the graphene solid-state battery.
Mm-hmm.
For every 33% increase you have in lithium technology or sodium technology or potassium technology, you have a 50% increase on the graphene technologies. So if I were a betting person, I would say graphene and solid state is where we're going to eventually end up. In the meantime, the other battery technologies don't have the energy density of lithium, and they're not even very close. And as long as the rate of growth in energy density stays the same between the different technologies, I could see lithium having a lifetime that is more than just a couple of years.
Okay.
That lithium could stick around for a little while. I love the opportunity that you get from things such as sand batteries or from sodium batteries. But there are going to be some practical considerations for those as well.
And of course, lithium mining continues to accelerate and increase. I don't know if I'd want to be one of those companies, based on the fact there's so many different technologies on the horizon. And what do you do once you built out your infrastructure for mining, and that mineral or that that element is no longer popular or in demand?
Right. So I love the potential in something like a sand battery, where sand can be heated up to 500 or 600 degrees, and it basically gets put into a lightly insulated silo, and sand just retains the heat for so long, and then it's just a matter of converting that heat energy back into other forms. That's an incredibly effective way to store and pull energy out at what would seem like a very low cost. You're talking about storing it in dirt, basically.
Yeah.
Just that the energy density isn't there yet.
Or like graphene, carbon, one of the most plentiful elements on the planet, and what we're trying to get rid of, actually.
Yeah. And if they can ever get the cost of graphene down, that's the killer right now. Is the graphene is about 10,000 times the cost of lithium.
So PYG KLB gives us a tip. He says, Robert from the Aging Wheels, quote unquote, channel just put up a video about the two Solos he bought from a former employee. What Electromechanic has actually been doing in order to retrieve their cars is they're offering the buyers or the owners of these vehicles full MSRP for these cars. So essentially, you can have driven it for 3 years or so, and you get full recovery on what you paid for the car.
Wow.
And what they're telling these customers is, look, if you don't buy it, your service options are gone.
Right.
We're not going to service it anymore. We're certainly not making any more parts for these cars. So it may be prudent for you to take our buyout offer.
And the few people that can afford to just keep the car and make it garage furniture are saying, yeah, this is the key to having a collectible car.
The future collectible, yeah. And that gonna have to wait for a while, but yeah, that's probably the overriding. By the way, if anyone has one here locally, in the greater Phoenix area, we would love to come out, take a look at it, do a video, interview you. We're fascinated, and we're working on a video about this whole project because it so much resonates with the EV1 debacle in the last century.
It sure does.
It would be, let's see here.
Richard Flenke says China car tech is scary good. Zeekr aims to make the Zeekr 007, which comes standard with an 800-volt electrical system and has a starting price of about $29,400.
Interesting. Okay.
And Richard, you're right. China is scaring the bejesus out of a lot of people because they are putting together good enough quality products at a tremendous price.
We went through this with our communications business 40 years ago, where China began to make commodity products, wall plates, jacks, anything that was a new technology that needed to be mass produced. China jumped on it immediately. And rather than fight that, we simply began to import product, and we began to offer two variations, U.S. made and globally sourced. You didn't want to say made in China because it was like made in Japan in the 60s,
Oh, yeah.
It implied, inferior quality, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with Chinese product. Once they get their act together, our critical power batteries are made in China. They're private labeled. They have Gruber power services on them. And you do have to pay attention to quality control processes, but aside from that, they're quite capable once they get rolling.
Yes, they are.
Lido, Idaho says it would be awesome to have Pete and Sandy Monroe have an online discussion. We've done that. And yes, it was a great, it was very popular. I just spoke to Sandy a couple of weeks ago, and I was asking whether he would be at the Tesla Takeover in Europe next month or the month after in May. And he will not be going to that, but yeah, there will definitely be some further collaborations and joint podcasts with the Sandy Monroe team.
On TikTok, Van Goat says, is Gruber set up as a public charging station?
Would we call our chargers? We have 8 of them, by the way, 2 different
Yes.
locations for each. Well, customers have used that before, yeah.
Customers have used that. We have an agreement with the local power company. The chargers that we have right now do take a key,
Mhm.
but we can give that key to anybody. And I think the whole idea behind it is they're open and publicly available. Just that because they are $0 chargers, it doesn't,
Yeah.
nobody's being charged money to use them. They're not like a Blink charger where anyone with a Blink account could come in and drive up and start charging just by paying for the Blink.
Sure. When we outfit Gruber Motor Company with those 8 chargers that we're in queue for with our utility, we should probably ask whether there is a variety that can accept credit cards, because then we could do public charging.
And there is actually, but it's there's some investment required, and it's a little different model, but it would be worth looking into.
Interesting, yeah. Okay. All right. Bernard Homan from Mexico says, here in Mexico, it's due to the current political situation. I think that if Xochitl wins, things for Tesla and many others will speed up substantially. Now, there was a 60 Minutes show about the outgoing president of Mexico, and I don't remember the name of the potential winner, but if that's Xochitl, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, yeah, it looks like any barriers involved should be removed, and we need to get this planet back in shape. So
yeah, I'm hoping for the best there, and hopefully the whatever red tape has been holding up the Mexican plant can finally get removed, and that can get going.
Mm-hmm. By the way, the one of the charging, we were talking about chargers that we have here. The most memorable for me most recently was a customer in San Diego has a brick roadster. And usually that requires transport, flatbed transport, and it gets expensive, especially if you're doing closed transport. They have to come to us, and then we recover the battery pack. Well, he had just purchased a new Rivian R1T pickup truck. And he decided, since it had a trailer hitch, he's going to go down to U-Haul, get a trailer, put the roadster on it, and then drive it here. And it was an eye-opener for him how much electricity is consumed when you're towing something. It's different than just driving around town.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
But what was amazing about that trip was he showed up one morning. He told us before, when he was coming and what his route was, and we were waiting for him. And he pulls into our driveway, a Gruber Motor Company. He says, "Pete, come here. You got to look at this console." And his miles left on that console was 0. Absolutely 0. I don't know how long he'd been driving that way, but I said, we need to get you over to Building C immediately. We have J1772 charging stations there. And he uncoupled and drove there. He had enough mileage to get that half block or so
Yes.
to charge. All right. Lido, Idaho says, I was theorizing using tar in solar heated containers to store heat after sundown. What?
That would work potentially in the same way that a sand battery would. I don't honestly know how well tar is, or some other thick material like that, at retaining heat. I know that sand is known to be famously good at retaining heat, not only for up to several months.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so sand batteries are definitely a thing, and Niels in his next comment even says that, where he talks about, he says, energy density for stationary battery applications is less significant, or really can be insignificant. Sand batteries are already economic for single houses. You just dig it down, it lasts forever, no maintenance on them. And that's because sand is so good at retaining heat.
No maintenance, he says. Yeah.
Yeah, and that no maintenance would be really cool.
Mm-hmm. Lido says, do I get free charging? Any of our viewers get free charging. Any of our customers, any of our friends. So, yes, please come and get free charging if you ever come to visit. Bring your EV, and we'll give you a charger while you're going through the tour.
Absolutely.
So it looks like Milliways is heading toward some completion here. This is the round Supercharger restaurant, 2-story movie theater combination, drive-in theater, I guess you could call it. And there's some aerial shots here that they're now working on the interiors, and they're making progress. What I found interesting about the video, and if you're interested, go to YouTube and just look up Milliways, and you'll find a bunch of ad hoc videos, drone type shots. It doesn't look like it's in the best neighborhood in the world because the block walls around the building are covered in graffiti.
Yes, I noticed that as well.
Yeah.
It's they said that on the article that they're putting they've loaded in sheetrock, and they're ready to start putting that up. So that means they're starting to work on the interior.
Mm-hmm.
To me personally, because I'm going to be in that area now in about 2.5 months.
That's right. Yeah.
I was thinking, wow, oh, dang. Because if they're just now putting in sheetrock, that means that it probably won't be built out completely and opened for anywhere from another 90 days to maybe as much as 6 months.
Could be,
And
yeah.
so likely won't be open when I go by, although we'll likely drive by, and depending on the time of day and what it's like in the neighborhood, may even stop and take pictures.
Jesse, there are a couple of images, Diner-1 and Diner-2. And Diner-1 shows the sheetrock sitting outside in the dirt there, covered in plastic, of course. It does rain there in California. And you can see what the construction is evolving. You can also see the walls just covered in graffiti there in the back and toward the front there. And to the right, you can see the screen structure, which will be one of the movie screens. And I believe there are two of them,
here,
one on the
above
other
my
side
head.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and if I remember right, that there are some power cables and power poles in front of that yellow wall with all the graffiti on it.
Mm-hmm.
Once those come down, there'll be another screen that goes up right there.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, they're going to go underground with the electrical distribution. That makes sense.
Yes.
The other thing that I noticed, there's some different drone shots of this construction site. The streets around it are full of potholes, and it just didn't look like the upscale neighborhood I would have expected them to build in. But those of you in California, you're probably going to chime in. Let us know what your thoughts are about the neighborhood and whether Tesla will be improving any of this. And there's one of the artist's rendition of the finished product. What were some of the takeaways you guys had? There were some artifacts in here that indicated that Elon reads the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe.
Yeah. Yes. And that is this one of the ones from the rendering from a few months ago?
I don't think this has all the stuff in it.
It does not. Okay.
Because the one that had all the stuff in it was there were multiple references to Hitchhiker's Guide.
And it looks like they're showing rain in this particular picture too. Very appropriate. Yeah, probably will be long lines as this opens up because this will be a landmark for all of the Tesla faithful. All right.
Yeah, it's going to be a zoo there.
So the Tesla Takeover, we plug that almost every podcast at this point. This is going to be in Europe this time around. It's going to be in Austria, May 25th and 26th. Number of keynote speakers will be there. I reached out to John Stringer. He's the one that was heavily involved in the last 3 takeovers here in the United States and California. He will be there. Bearded Tesla is going to be there. I don't have a list here, but a whole bunch of influencers, people that you've probably seen in the media related to EV activity. It'll be a big party. It'll be in a place that is one of the most scenic places on the planet in Flachau, Austria, just outside of Salzburg. And it should be fun. So we'll continue to give you feedback about how it's progressing. They expect up to 1,000 Teslas in this, what they say, amidst the beautiful nature of the Alps. And a number of Tesla clubs are going to be there from Europe. various countries. Long list. There is a website that you can go to, and it's TeslaTakeover.eu. There we go, www.teslatakeover.edu. Exactly, I remembered it.
Yes, and it's. I'm looking forward to seeing you over there, and because I think we're going to try to have a podcast while you're there at the Tesla Takeover.
We are.
And that's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be a good time. I'm envious of you too, because I always miss the green.
Yeah.
The desert's just not green in the same way.
And yeah, it'll be a live podcast. I'll be there. They'll be here. I'll be on Zoom, and I'll be able to show you what's going on there. And it'll be one of our best podcasts, most likely. My son Maximilian's going with me. He's been in the video business and photography business now for almost a decade. Well, actually longer than that, because he was doing it as a kid in grammar school.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he's very talented. He's going to be there with a lot of the media content that we're going to collect while we're there. So look for that.
Yes. There's one more article I wanted to talk about. We've heard a lot of EV makers talk about the slowdown in EV demand.
Mm-hmm.
Ford is delaying their EVs. Chevrolet is talking about delaying the Silverado by a year. It's made the news. Lucid isn't building as many EVs as expected because of a slowdown in demand. One company that's not, and that's Volvo.
Really?
And Volvo's electric vehicle volumes continue to be highly, or electric vehicles, they continue to be highly sought after. Volvo started out a couple years ago with the EX40, it's now called the EX40. It was called the XC40 and the C40. They have recently expanded their lineup to include the EX30, a slightly smaller hatchback style vehicle, and an EX90, which is a larger 7-seat SUV, similar to what Rivian's bringing out with the Gravity. The wait times for these vehicles are the longest that Volvo has ever had, regardless of vehicle type.
Yeah.
Alex Zurhausen, the head of the online business at Volvo Germany, has said that the wait times for their Volvos are longer than he's seen in 20 years, that they're selling more Volvo vehicles than they've ever sold before, and that their revenue is higher than it's ever been before. It takes longer in Germany to get a Volvo than it does to get a Porsche.
Wow. Okay.
And so the Volvo did set new, according to the CEO, Jim Rowan of Volvo, they set new sales and revenue records in 2023, and they expect 2024 to be, in his words, significantly better.
And what are the wait times?
Right now, the wait times for Volvos range anywhere from 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
And when my wife and I bought an EX40 Volvo a couple years ago now, almost 2 years ago, and at the time we had to wait almost 6 months to get it. The one thing that I've noticed about Volvo, or that I noticed by its absence, we went to Volvo not too long ago for its service. For EVs, they have a 20,000 mile service. And the quality, the comfort of the car is wonderful. What I didn't see on the Volvo lot was any electric vehicle.
Really?
They're selling them out. They can't keep them on the lots.
Okay.
And this is 2023, late summer 23 when I saw this. They were telling me they can't keep them on the lots. The Volvo is not eligible for the federal subsidy. It doesn't matter. People want this car because
They want that brand.
they
Yeah.
want it's known to be an extremely safe, extremely well-built brand, and they can't keep up. So the whole concept that the EV demand is falling off and so on and so forth, no, I don't think so.
Not specific to all manufacturers.
It's
yeah.
not specific to
Yeah.
all manufacturers. The ones that are continuing to put out a good quality product are still seeing really high demand.
Mhm.
Audi is doing much the same. They're saying, "Hey, we're going to build our last ICE vehicle and introduce our last ICE model in 2026.
Mhm.
Once that model's discontinued, that's it. We're going to be fully EV."
Amazing. 3 to 6 months isn't long. We have a neighbor here that just got her Aptera Rivian pickup truck, the R1T. I asked her how long did it take to get it. 24 months, 2 years.
Yeah.
So she had a Model 3 in the meantime. We're going to wrap up here. Niels, he says, I follow Aptera and will get one if they make it. Yes, it's the first EV that makes real good sense to me. Long story. Everyone driving EVs like Tesla won't make a big difference. We'll catch that on the next podcast, Neil. Save that thought. And those of you that joined us today, thank you. We're going into our Tesla Roadster podcast here in 5 minutes. So if you want to continue seeing our ugly mugs up here, we're going to be talking about Roadsters in 5 minutes.
Take care, everyone.